authors, entertainers to innovators, we connect with those who help shape our culture. Join us in revealing stories of their lives and backgrounds, their triumphs and tragedies that molded them into who they are today. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating, this is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. This week on Audibles, Sammy Winder.
So your story starts on July 15th, 1952, growing up in Madison County. So how would you describe growing up in Madison County?
I grew up out in the country, on a farm. It was challenging, I'll say. It was a life that, I didn't really enjoy as a kid, but I love it now.
Why do you enjoy it?
I guess I was looking across the fence at other kids, and they wasn't growing up like that or living like that, and I wanted to live the way they were living, and that was mainly the main reason.
How would you describe your family growing up?
Oh, we was a pretty close-knit family.
Yeah.
I'm number 10 out of 11, so we was pretty close. We had a good family. My childhood, as far as just family, was great. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just the way we grew up is the part that I had a problem with.
Your dad was a farmer, is that right?
Dad was a farmer, yeah, and we were farm hands.
So you guys probably had a lot of early mornings, right?
Oh, early mornings, that's an understatement. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, everything had to be done before daylight. I mean, you had to get started before daylight. Everything. It didn't matter what it was. You got out of bed before daylight.
The metro area has changed a lot. Last 10, 20, going back decades. It's changed a lot.
Right.
How would you describe how it was when you were growing up?
That's something I didn't get a chance to go to town very much. That was only 2 or 3 times a year trip, but we was all excited about going because we didn't get to do it very much, And that was the little bit that I saw was about what formed that image of wanting to get out of the country to go to the city or go to the inner city. But, the country was nice now, don't get me wrong. We had fun, but I just thought that inner city was funner. Was
your family an athletic family, or you the first really big-time athlete from your family?
My brother, just a couple years ahead of me, played high school ball, and he played a little bit of ball at Mississippi Valley. But we were the only 2 that played ball.
Where do you think your athletic ability, where do you trace it back to?
Probably working in the fields.
Yeah.
Chasing cows, chasing hogs. Probably that. I know that my brother started playing high school ball before I did, and he and I horsing around in the backyard. And I'm thinking, this guy ain't that good, but he coming home with all these stories about how he did this and did that on the football field. So that's really what made me give football a try.
Do you remember how young you were when sports really started becoming important to you?
I started, I ran track for 4 years in high school. I played football 3 years, but I guess I really got into it when I went to college. That's when I really started trying to be the guy that I thought I could be or wanted to be, and the guy that everybody expected me to be, I guess, when I went to college.
Was there a sport you obviously became this great football player, but was there a sport that rivaled football in terms of how it interested you?
No. It was all football. Like I say, I was determined to be better than my brother. Because he had some tall stories about how he was knocking people out because he played linebacker, knocking people out and this and that. So I just wanted to be better than him.
How would you describe Sammy Winder in high school? What were you like in high school?
I was the class clown.
Really?
Yeah, everything was something to make fun of to me. That's what I was. I was happy-go-lucky every day.
Did you pull some pranks?
Oh, all the time.
What was your best prank?
I don't know if I can tell it.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
I mean, it was unbelievable stuff. You know, taking stuff out of people's locker, putting it in a different locker. You know, things like that. That was something I did all the time. I was just that guy that had that kind of energy that messed with people.
Now, you went to MRA, Madison Ridgeland Academy.
Not academy, just high school.
The high school, right.
Right.
So back then it was just Madison Ridgeland.
Right.
So you guys played teams like Brandon Academy,
Right.
Mississippi Baptist, schools that
Right.
aren't around anymore in the North Central Conference. We're going way back, right?
Right.
So how would you describe playing football back then for Madison Ridgeland?
It was fun. It was great. You know, we played. You know, the teams we played to, in our eyes, they were big name teams. I mean, it was Friday night football. You know, so it was wonderful. It really gave me a chance to go out and compare myself to other guys, you know, throughout the county or throughout the region.
So coming out of Madison Ridgeland, what schools, what universities were you wanting to play football for, and what schools were interested in you?
I really didn't have a set university to play for. In fact, the only scholarship that was offered to me was Mississippi Valley.
Okay.
No one else offered a scholarship, and so I ended up signing with Valley, and I went up there for a summer, but there were no schools just knocking at my door coming out of high school.
So what happened for you to transition from Valley to Southern Miss? What was the process like there?
Well, see, I went up for summer school before regular school started, and I just could not get with the way the coaches talked to the players.
Really?
That was just, it was unbelievable. It was hard and harsh, and I didn't grow up in a family like that. You know, my daddy didn't cuss, or my mama didn't cuss. I didn't say they didn't fuss,
Right.
but they didn't cuss, and I couldn't adjust to that. And I got an opportunity to walk on at Southern Miss, and I took it.
So you walk on there in 1977, is that right?
Right.
And you really don't get to show off your talent until the 78 season, which you did.
What happened, I was supposed to be playing in the Mississippi High School All-Star game. And in preparation for the game, I broke a bone in my foot. So I didn't get a chance to play in the game. So when I get down to Hattiesburg, it's still injured. I'm still injured. So, like I said, I walked on. And so I just set out that whole football season of 77.
So your first season that you really got to play was 78.
78.
So what lessons would you say you learned as a freshman playing college football that maybe you still carried throughout the rest of your career? What early lessons did you learn?
I think it's just aggression. I mean, that was a different level of ball from high school because you're around more athletes that can really play. And I think aggression was probably the biggest thing that I had to make that adjustment to. And you got to play with pain too.
Now, 78, you led the Golden Eagles in rushing, 749 yards that year. So I got to think that's a big confidence boost for you as a freshman, right?
It wasn't expected.
Yeah.
You know, I thought the guy that played in front of me starting the season was an excellent running back. And all of a sudden I get thrown into a game and I rush for 100 yards and the ball started rolling after that. But, you know, it wasn't something that I was trying to beat that guy out to do. It just happened. And that was a spectacular moment, I can tell you.
So in 79, the Golden Eagles finished 6-4. You roll into that 1980 season, and it really, looking back on it, seems like that's when things started to click for you guys. You had Reggie Collier, had really solidified himself as the starter quarterback. You had Lewis Lips at wideout. Marvin Henry was at tight end. He caught 28 passes that season. And then You're the nation's leading scorer that year with 20 touchdowns. So from leading the team in rushing in 79, and now you're leading the nation in scoring in 1980. Who or what would you say helped you kind of raise your game between 79 and 80?
I don't know. I think I was surrounded by some great athletes overall on that particular team. I think that we played together as a team really well that season. I don't know that there was any one person that I could hang my hat on that inspired me the most. I think the team as a whole just it fit together perfectly for who we had and what our scheme was. And I guess if I had to throw it out at one person, it probably would be Reggie Collier. You know, he wouldn't take a hit. He would always run out of bounds, so he probably ran out of bounds close to the goal line every time and ended up scoring. Yeah.
So that's a shout out to Reggie, right?
Oh, yeah. I got to get a plug in on him, yeah.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
Quality of life is about lifelong care. Your family's health care is important to you, and that's important to us. King's Daughters Medical Center is here for your family in every stage of life, from the excited new parents, adolescent and teen years, to the big day. Walking alongside of you in life's journey, living a healthier life. KDMC, caring for our community like no one else can.
Wendy's $3 breakfast deal is a bacon and sausage croissant plus seasoned potatoes for just $3. It's the kind of breakfast that really sticks with you, especially if you're Tyler. Tyler. Have breakfast.
Oh.
If you want a better breakfast you'll never forget, Wendy's is that breakfast. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's $3 breakfast deal.
We're going the extra mile, and we're taking you with us.
We have a responsibility to get the work to the streets.
Join us on the Extra Mile podcast as we travel Mississippi highways to bring you in-depth conversations with state leaders,
gotta have the ability to get their product to market,
infrastructure stakeholders, and Mississippi locals to give you a behind-the-scenes look at transportation throughout the state.
Highways, movement of goods, these are things that we rely on every day.
You can listen and watch episodes of the show by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
For those on the go, we give you Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast.
What are we listening to? Are we listening to a playlist? Are we listening to a podcast?
What a great question.
Listen to our intimate interviews with guests on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and so many more.
Do you ever look back and say, you know, my life, the story could have ended up differently had it not been for your grandparents?
Incredibly different, for sure.
Plus, you'll hear behind-the-scenes commentary on each guest, interview preparation, location, and so much more from Jason himself.
Do you have a favorite Coach Bowden story that you can share with us?
I can tell you this, what you see with Bobby Bowden is what you get.
Check out Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast, on any of these popular podcast locations and hit subscribe, download, and enjoy. Now, back to the show.
That 1980 season, it was special in a lot of ways. So let's start with the Tulane game. You guys had lost kind of in a controversial way the year before. The 1980 season opener is down in the Superdome.
Right.
I believe it was the first Southern Miss game that was televised in school history.
Best of my knowledge, yes.
A very big deal, because back then you could only get maybe 3 college football games on a weekend.
Right.
And so you guys win in dramatic fashion on a game-winning field goal down in the Superdome.
Right.
You and Reggie have a good game. That seemed to sort of, I don't know, maybe set the table for the rest of the year. Is that a good way to put it?
That was a big game to us because we're playing on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the nation watching. And we was excited about that. And then at that time, Tulane was one of the rivals for us. You know, we're not that far apart. Recruiting in the same area, so that was a big game for us, and it was a hard-fought game. I remember it. We didn't run away with it. I mean, Tulane played really tough, and we played really tough, and fortunate we came out on top.
So 1981, your senior season, you had another milestone to your career at Southern Miss. You rushed for over 1,000 yards. So for running back, that's like the ultimate goal,
right,
to go over 1,000 yards. And I know you're proud of that, obviously, but is there something from that season that you're proud of that maybe doesn't get a whole lot of public attention?
You know, rushing for 1,000 yards is the, back then, it may not be today, but back then that was the one point that any running back wanted to reach in the course of a season. So to reach that was tremendous. That's something I'll never forget because, like I say, that was a goal of mine to do. But once again, I can't take the credit because, like I say, we had great athletes on the team that deserve a lot of credit too for the things they did to allow me to achieve that goal. So, but that was a great moment in my life. I can't deny that.
So here's what you guys did that season, and I hope people appreciate this because in this day and time, I can't imagine what this would have meant. You guys destroy Florida State in Tallahassee. I mean, destroy them.
Let me tell you how that happened. You know, I'll never forget this. You know, our head coach was Bobby Collins.
Mm-hmm.
So we opening up with Florida State, and he come in the locker room and he says that, holding a newspaper, and he said, look like the only team in America that has a tougher opening day than Southern Miss is Florida State. We bought it. It wasn't in the paper.
It wasn't in the paper?
No. But we bought it because he was holding the newspaper and talking to us as though he was looking in the newspaper.
That's all it took?
That's all it took.
Why did that motivate you guys so much?
Because we are Southern nobody going to play Florida State Seminoles. Mm-hmm. You see? So, and for him to tell us, who, you know, coaches never lie.
Right.
For him to tell us that the only team, while looking in the paper, that has a tougher opening day than Southern Miss is Florida State. Mm. So we thinking the country believed this. Why shouldn't we?
It was awfully quiet in that stadium around the fourth quarter, wasn't it?
You know, that was a game where pretty much everything went our way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's punt returns, long passes, long runs. I mean, it was a game that, like I say, everything went our way. Yeah? And that was a great feeling, and to go down there at their place and to win like we won, that was unbelievable.
Well, you guys carry that momentum. You beat a Mississippi State team ranked 15th that year. You tied number 7 Alabama in Birmingham, who at the time, of course, they were coached by legendary Bear Bryant.
That was probably when we went over there, now Coach didn't come to us no speech like that or nothing like that, but because you didn't need a speech like that. You playing Alabama, right. You know, you playing Paul Bear Bryant. It was, I think, coming away with a tie was like a victory to us, but I think that's when we began to really realize that we had a pretty good team.
Yeah, you tie Alabama. You guys finished that season 9-2-1. Your only loss is a 3-point loss to Louisville,
Right.
and then the 2-point loss to Missouri
Right.
in the Tangerine Bowl. If you use today's standards, you guys would probably be in the college football playoff, correct?
We had a bunch of athletes on that team. I mean, it was unbelievable, defense and offense. You know, we had guys at skill position. We had defensive players that, you know, Gerald Bayless was probably the smallest nose guard in the country, but yet he was making tackles from sideline to sideline. He leading the defense in tackles. I mean, it was unbelievable.
So coming out of Southern Miss, what were your hopes and what were you being told as far as the NFL draft goes?
Well, I really didn't think I had what it took to make an NFL team.
Really?
No, I really didn't. I never thought like that. I'm going to be honest with you. High school, college, and NFL, I was never the best athlete on the team at running back. I'll say that today. I was never the best athlete on the team at running back, but I was probably more determined. Probably. I thought that you had to be able to run like the wind and just run through tacklers and, you know, break a bunch of tackles and things like that to make an NFL team. So I didn't give myself. I don't want to mislead you. It's not that I didn't believe in myself.
Sure.
I just didn't think I had enough talent to play pro ball.
Well, the 1982 draft, you're drafted in the 5th round by the Denver Broncos.
Right.
So what was that moment like to hear your name called?
Oh, that was tremendous. I had no idea. I felt like I was going to get drafted, but I didn't know what round or anything like that. And Coach Dan Reeves called the dorm. I was at the dorm at Southern Miss and called the dorm, and I spoke with him. He told me I was drafted in the 5th round by the Denver Broncos. I'm a Bronco now, and I don't think I slept that night. I mean, I was wired up all night.
So for the guy from Madison, Mississippi, where it rarely snows, and you're heading to Denver where it snows like 50 to 60 inches a year, right. What did you know about Denver before that training camp?
I didn't know anything about Denver. I didn't know. I have heard talk of it being cold, but I didn't know how cold or how much snow or anything like that. The first year out there was an awakening, I can tell you that.
As far as the weather goes?
As far as the weather goes,
Yeah. So 1982, your rookie season, you carried the ball 67 times, you had 11 catches. What did you learn your rookie season that you think maybe helped you throughout the rest of your career?
Well, that I could play on that level, I think, was the biggest thing. Like I say, I went there thinking I possibly couldn't play on that level, but after getting there and making the team, which, you know, I in training camp that year, I was thinking I wasn't going to make the team because the 5 guys that was there the year before me was back, plus they drafted a running back in the 1st round. I was a 5th round draft choice, and there was a couple other free agent signees there. I was saying, there's no way I'm going to make this team, and I ended up making the team. And I guess that's when I really started believing that I could play on this level.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
We believe patient-centered care is where it all begins. That's why King's Daughters Medical Center ranks nationally in patient care and safety. Our staff's commitment to better healthcare means a higher quality of life for so many. We are one team, one heartbeat, one mission to provide this community with the high-quality healthcare. KDMC, caring for our community like no one else can.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like a hamburger without the fresh beef.
No!
Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
We're going the extra mile, and we're taking you with us.
We have a responsibility to get the work to the streets.
Join us on the Extra Mile podcast as we travel Mississippi highways to bring you in-depth conversations with state leaders,
Gotta have the ability to get their product to market,
infrastructure stakeholders, and Mississippi locals to give you a behind-the-scenes look at transportation throughout the state.
Highways, movement of goods, these are things that we rely on every day.
You can listen and watch episodes of the show by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile.
So sweet, so crispy. Nobody makes breakfast as good as Wendy's new home-style French toast sticks.
Nobody.
Nope.
Keep talking. I can't hear you.
I should probably stop.
Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's home-style French toast sticks.
For those on the go, we give you Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast.
What are we listening to? Are we listening to a playlist? Are we listening to a podcast?
What a great question.
Listen to our intimate interviews with guests on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and so many more.
Do you ever look back and say, you know, my life, the story could have ended up differently had it not been for your grandparents?
Incredibly different, for sure.
Plus, you'll hear behind-the-scenes commentary on each guest, interview preparation, location, and so much more from Jason himself.
Do you have a favorite Coach Bowden story that you can share with us?
I can tell you this, what you see with Bobby Bowden is what you get.
Check out Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast, on any of these popular podcast locations and hit subscribe, download, and enjoy. Now, back to the show.
Now, you end up playing for one of my all-time favorite guys in football, Coach Dan Reeves.
Right.
Do you remember your first interaction with Coach Reeves?
I remember this. He used to get on the rookies. He used to get on them real hard, you know.
Really?
Really, really hard. And me and a couple of other rookies were sitting around in the locker room after practice one day, and we were saying, man, I don't think we're gonna make this team. You know, we talking that kind of talk. And one of the older guys walked by and said, tell me this, is he walking towards you as you come back to the hole, fussing at you? I said, yeah. And he used to hold his hands like this and suck his bottom lip in. He said, if he's doing that, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But when he stopped doing that, that's when you need to have this conversation. So we started paying attention to that. And it turned out, in our case anyway, it turned out to be true.
So a little personal,
well,
whatever.
I guess it was his way of coaching us, trying to get us to perform in the right way or the way that he would like to see us perform. Mm-hmm. Whereas a player that he knew wasn't going to be a part of the squad, maybe he didn't put that much emphasis into approaching him.
So your rookie season is Coach Reeves' second season. Things don't really go so well for you guys that year.
Right.
And then in 1983, you guys draft this young quarterback named John Elway.
Right.
But what was your first impression of Elway?
He could throw the ball really, really hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard. So we had to get on the ball machine and we had to crank it up as high as it would go to spit the ball out, to simulate how he throws the ball.
That's how hard he threw it.
Yeah, yeah. John's a good quarterback. I mean, it took him his, first year to really settle in. I'm not saying that he just tore things up his first year, but he showed signs of of being a good quarterback coming up.
It seems like, looking back at it now, that 84 season is when things seemed like, talking about at Southern Miss, when things started to click.
Right.
That 84 season, things started to click for you guys, or seemingly. You finished 13-3 that season, win the AFC West before losing to Pittsburgh in the divisional round.
To Lewis Lips. Lost
to Lewis Lips,
yeah.
right. But in that Pittsburgh game, you had just had surgery on your knee 13 days before that game, and you still played.
Right. Yeah. I had my knee scoped, and they went in and found minor damage, and I was fortunate enough to play in that game.
But how did you find the strength to play through? You just had surgery, and you still played.
Well, I guess the adrenaline was flowing, you know, and the desire to play. It was, I don't know, but somehow I made it work.
So you guys missed the playoffs at 85.
Yeah.
Then you get into the 86 season. That was a special season. You guys win the AFC West, advance to the AFC Championship game against Cleveland.
Right.
And this game became famous because this is where the drive
right.
was born. John Elway, in a span of 5 minutes, 2 seconds, he leads Denver 98 yards, 15 plays to tie the game with 37 seconds left in regulation.
Right.
You guys win in overtime by making a 33-yard field goal, winning 23-20 over the Cleveland Browns. Take me inside the huddle that day on the drive. What was Elway telling you guys?
You know, on the kickoff, the ball was fumbled. It wasn't caught cleanly, fumbled, and by the time he got on the ball, you know, the defenders was there. So we runs down, and we huddling up in the end zone, and one of the offensive linemen said, "We got him right where we want him." I mean, just out of the blue, he said that, right? And I think the first play or so was a run to me. And then Elway hit a pass over the middle to Steve Sewell, and things just started coming together, you know. But when that guy said that we got him right where we want him, we all had that look on our face. Really? you know. But it turned out that was a true statement.
Did you find that offensive lineman after the game and tell him he was right?
I haven't spoke to him about that, but I need to, because he was right.
He needs to go to Vegas or something, right?
I know,
Having
right?
that kind of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So how did you celebrate the win that day?
When we got back to Denver, I mean, it was a slew of people waiting on us at the airport, you know, because because we won the game in Cleveland. It was cold, and Cleveland played. I mean, Cleveland played really well. I got to give them credit. But to win that game and to be going to the Super Bowl, I mean, that's the ultimate dream, you know. You know, I would say your first dream is to make the ball club, and then the next is to go play in the Super Bowl, and that was tremendous. That's like a dream come true.
Was there a moment for you that it sank in that 86 season that you're going to play in the Super Bowl? When did it sink in for you, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to play the Super Bowl?
I don't know if it ever sunk in. I stayed excited the whole time. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, because, like I say, that's the ultimate dream of any professional football player, is to play in the Super Bowl. And for us to be headed to play in that one, unbelievable. It's a time in my life that I'll never forget, I can tell you that.
You guys are facing off against the New York Giants in Super Bowl 21. Right. Giants had Phil Simms at quarterback and a guy playing linebacker that they called LT, Lawrence Taylor.
Right.
You guys are up 10-9 at the half, so got to be feeling good. What was Coach Reeves telling you guys at the half?
We felt like we played well the first half, and we had an opportunity to score a touchdown. We was down on the goal line. We couldn't punch it in. But I mean, the vibes in the locker room was good. Everybody was up tempo, you know. We thought we were going to come back out the second half and play the same.
The Giants scored 17 points in the third quarter. They kind of ride that momentum in the second half, and they end up with the victory 39-20 in Super Bowl 21. Playing in a Super Bowl, like you said, that's a dream, a lifelong goal if you've played competitive football at all. Right. So what's going through your mind in the postgame?
You know, I was rejected. I mean, I think we all were. We was hurt. We was let down, let ourselves down, let the team down, let the organization down. We was hurt, but you soon come out of that thinking and get into we'll be back. Mm-hmm. You know, you live that for a moment, the hurt part and all that, but you're thinking we'll be back because you're thinking the athletes that you got around you, that you're playing with, that we got the talent we can come back.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
When you find a great community, you will find great health care. That is exactly what King's Daughters Medical Center provides. Keeping businesses moving with occupational wellness, heart-healthy screenings, diabetes education and management, community education, and remote patient monitoring that promotes better care in between regular office visits. KDMC, caring for our community like no one else can.
Wendy's $3 breakfast deal is a bacon or sausage croissant plus seasoned potatoes for just $3. It's the kind of breakfast that really sticks with you, especially if you're Tyler. Tyler. Our breakfast.
Oh.
If you want a better breakfast you'll never forget, Wendy's is that breakfast. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's $3 breakfast deal.
For those on the go, we give you Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast.
What are we listening to? Are we listening to a playlist? Are we listening to a podcast?
What a great question.
Listen to our intimate interviews with guests on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and so many more.
Do you ever look back and say, you know, my life, the story could have ended up differently had it not been for your grandparents?
Incredibly different, for sure.
Plus, you'll hear behind-the-scenes commentary on each guest, interview preparation, location, and so much more from Jason himself.
Do you have a favorite Coach Bowden story that you can share with us?
I can tell you this, what you see with Bobby Bowden is what you get.
Check out Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast, on any of these popular podcast locations and hit subscribe, download, and enjoy. Now, back to the show.
So the next season in 1987, you guys are rolling again.
Right.
You win the AFC West again.
Okay.
And again, you're headed to the Super Bowl 22, against the Washington Redskins at the time.
Right.
Now, to play in one Super Bowl, that's one thing. But to play in back-to-back Super Bowls, I mean, what did that mean to you and your teammates to accomplish such a feat?
Well, it once again, like a dream come true because, you know, you make this statement after the first loss, oh, we're going back. Yeah. And it comes true. We go back, and you know, I could say the first Super Bowl, I think we outplayed people to go to that one. The second Super Bowl, I think our defense played really well that year. Offense didn't play as well, in my opinion, but the defense played well. We scored when we had to in times, but I think that was a defensive Super Bowl trip for us. Whatever it was, we were glad to be there.
So this time, the Redskins, you got to be thinking, here we go again. The Redskins used a 35-point second quarter to carry them to the 42-10 Super Bowl 22 victory. I can't imagine how frustrating it must have been in the locker room for you and your teammates, back to back, go to the Super Bowl, only to not have your best day. What was going through your mind after the second Super Bowl?
Can't believe this happened again. Maybe. I mean, you're rejected. I mean, it's no way that you could not be rejected and feeling down and all that, but I don't know. Honestly, I felt like going into that game that we matched up really well. That we could play with those guys, and but it didn't turn out that way. But we were hurt. We were rejected. I was probably went 3 or 4 days without being sociable to anybody, because I was rejected behind that. But like I say, you come out of it thinking that we're gonna do it again. That's the mindset I had anyway.
Well, you guys did do it again. You missed the playoffs in '88. Then in '89, you guys find your form again, and you're headed to Super Bowl 24. But I got to imagine that season was a little bittersweet. Your production and time on the field had dropped down a little bit. Was it bittersweet because of that?
No, not at all. I wasn't a starter anymore. They had brought in a running back from Alabama, Bobby Humphrey, very talented running back, and he was the starter. And I was coming off the bench to spare him throughout the game, but still deeply embedded into the Broncos and the game and all that. That never went away. And I realized that Bob, the right guy, was starting. That wasn't a problem in my mind or anything like that. But here we go again. We're going back to the Super Bowl. That's the main thing. And once again, I knew that I felt like we had to be hitting on all cylinders. We were playing the 49ers. We had to be hitting on all cylinders to have a chance. And it just didn't work out for us.
Yeah, they had a guy at quarterback named Joe Montana.
Exactly.
Guy at receiver from our home state, pretty good, named Jerry Rice.
Right.
And you blink and you're down 27-3 at halftime. And speaking of that phrase, here we go again. I mean, was that the thought in the locker room at halftime? Like, you got to be kidding, man. Here we go again.
Well, I think for the most part, by then, our team faces had changed a good bit from the Super Bowl 2 years earlier to that one. So I don't know if it was that thought in the locker room, but you can never not think you can come back. If you think that way, you'll never come back. And my memory of the locker room at halftime, guys were still pumped up and still, slapping each other on the shoulder pads and let's go out and do this, And I can recall Dan Reeves said, we got to get one score. We get one score, we go from there. We get a score and a stop, and that's the way it was in the locker room. I don't think it was no reflecting back on what had happened a couple of years ago or anything like that.
49ers going to win Super Bowl 24. You come back in that 1990 season. The Broncos are 5-11, and it was at that moment that you decided 9 seasons is enough. Right. You decided to hang it up. How difficult is that moment to hang them up for good?
Well, for me, it was a thought now, don't get me wrong, it was a thought, but the main thing that started happening in my mind that I had never had a vision or inkling of this in the past. I wasn't a starter anymore, and I was watching Bobby get hit, and I'm thinking, would I have gotten up from that hit? And when I started having those thoughts, that's when I started thinking this might need to be the end. and go home. And then at the same time, I had already started a business here that I wanted to get home to. So walking away wasn't that over the top for me. I loved the game when I was in it. You know, the rougher, the better. I didn't have a problem with bleeding every day. That wasn't a problem. It's just that I felt like it was time for me to do something else.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
Quality of life is about lifelong care. Your family's health care is important to you, and that's important to us. King's Daughters Medical Center is here for your family in every stage of life, from the excited new parents, adolescent and teen years, to the big day. Walking alongside of you in life's journey, living a healthier life. KDMC, caring for our community like no one else can.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like a hamburger without the fresh beef.
No!
Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
So sweet, so crispy. Nobody makes breakfast as good as Wendy's new home-style French toast sticks.
Nobody.
Nope.
Keep talking. I can't hear you.
I should probably stop.
Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's home-style French toast sticks.
For those on the go, we give you Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast.
What are we listening to? Are we listening to a playlist? Are we listening to a podcast?
What a great question.
Listen to our intimate interviews with guests on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and so many more.
Do you ever look back and say, you know, my life, the story could have ended up differently had it not been for your grandparents?
Incredibly different, for sure.
Plus, you'll hear behind-the-scenes commentary on each guest, interview preparation, location, and so much more from Jason himself.
Do you have a favorite Coach Bowden story that you can share with us?
I can tell you this, what you see with Bobby Bowden is what you get.
Check out Audibles with Jason Scarborough, the podcast, on any of these popular podcast locations and hit subscribe, download, and enjoy. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, one thing young people need to know watching this is the AstroTurf back then was not like it is now either.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Like going out the parking lot and playing.
Yeah.
So here's what you did in your time as a Bronco. You led the AFC in scoring in 1987. You're the second all-time Broncos touchdown scorer. You hold the single-season Broncos scoring record, 14 touchdowns in 1986. You played in 3 Super Bowls and were a 2-time Pro Bowl selection in 1984 and 1986. You finished with 5,427 career rushing yards and 39 touchdowns as a Bronco, and are still, to this day, considered one of the best to ever wear the orange crush and blue. When you hear those accomplishments now, as we sit here in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame and Museum, what comes to your mind?
Just looking back and saying that I achieved some things that I never dreamed that I was capable of doing. I doubted myself for ever being able to play pro ball. Mm-hmm. And then I get there and I become a starter, and now I'm a scoring leader, and I'm a 1,000-yard rusher. I play in 3 Super Bowls and 2 Pro Bowls. I had an unbelievable career. People ask me all the time, do I wish I had won one of the Super Bowls? Of course I do.
Yeah.
But I played in 3, and that is a whole room full of guys that never get the opportunity to play in 1.
Right.
And I played in 3, and I'm just really grateful for that.
I think you guys like the great Dan Marino and so many others.
Right.
They didn't get to play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You got to play in 3.
Right.
So I want to do a little rewind in your
Okay.
career
All
for
right.
just a second. So the best tackler you faced in the NFL was who?
Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott.
What made him such a good tackler?
I can't tell the story, but he hit me, and I'm still feeling it today.
Now, is this the same guy, hardest hitter you ever played against? Is it also Ronnie Lott, or is
It'd
that
be
somebody
Ronnie,
else?
yeah.
Really? Yeah. So he's the best tackler and the hardest hitter.
Yeah.
The loudest visitor stadium that you played in while in the
Seattle
NFL?
Superdome.
Really?
Unbelievable. I know they built a new stadium now, but back in the 80s, that dome, you couldn't hear anything. It was loud.
Who was the player that just really agitated you, got under your skin?
Boy, I could name a...
You can name a bunch,
It was a
right?
bunch. Yeah.
That might be an entirely different show, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I wasn't a talker, and I wasn't a listener, and nothing like that. When I got tackled, I got up and went back to the hole. I would say one of the guys that talked to me the most, we were teammates in college, Hanford Dixon. When we played them those 3 years, we went to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Going back to the college days, talk a
Yeah.
little trash.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Winder Construction, the business that you formed back. You were still with the Broncos in '87. So for folks watching, how would you describe your duties at Winder Construction, and what kind of construction do you guys do?
Well, we did dirt work, mostly residential site prep type work. That was the main thing. I've always been fascinated with bulldozers and track hoes and things of that nature. So that's what I wanted to do when I got out of ball. So I started buying a few pieces here and there while I was playing ball, and so that's what I came home to do when I finished playing.
Things still going well?
I'm in it on a smaller scale now. I don't have the heavy equipment that I once had. I got little mini stuff that I do smaller jobs with, but I still love doing it.
So I'm going to switch it up on you just a little bit, all right? So what is Sammy Winder like at home? Like, what's your go-to to when you just want to wind down and just relax, just chill out a little bit?
Just walk around outside. I live on 20 acres out in Madison, and most of it is open. Just me and my dog walking around outside. And go fishing. I love to fish.
You like to fish?
I love to fish.
What kind of fishing?
Crappie and bass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, now I know who my next fishing partner is. If you like fishing, so yeah.
I love fishing.
I know who my next fishing partner is.
Yeah.
So my final question for you, what do you think young Sammy Winder, growing up in Madison, growing up on a farm, number 10 in a large family,
Right.
would think about all that you've accomplished in college, playing at Southern Miss, really putting Southern Miss football on the map, being one of the most beloved and still to this day talked about Denver Broncos, playing in 3 Super Bowls with one of the greatest to ever do it at quarterback. What do you think young Sammy Winder would think about, and successful business owner on top of that, what do you think young Sammy Winder would think about all you've accomplished?
I mean, young Sammy Winder, mind was so out there. I don't know. I may have let him down. Now, you know, I wanted to get away from Pocahontas, and I wanted to not necessarily get away from Mississippi, but just get away from the life that I grew up in and experience some other things in life. Mm-hmm. And I think the young Sammy Winder would be impressed if he was able to foresee that coming. Would have been impressed and pleased, because that was my desires back then. I thought I was living being in a world where I had so many restrictions, and being on the farm and doing farm work and driving the tractor and anything like that. But I gravitated back to that. So I think young Sammy would be okay with that.
I grew up, one of the first things that I got as a young guy when football started becoming important to me was a tape on the history of the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I would watch every single Super Bowl every single year. And so seeing you play in those Super Bowls and now sitting here with you is a great thrill of mine. So thank you for doing this, and I hope we get to catch up again sometime down the road.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sammy Winder.
All right, we just come into these cold. We do a little open coming in, and so if you're ready, I'll just start firing away.
I'm ready when you
get ready. All right, 3, 2, and 1.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.